And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Donald Trump under fire for saying nothing. You heard me right. We'll tell you what happened last night in New Jersey. No, New Hampshire. Also, is it time to end affirmative action in college? And as the U.S. gets ready for the Pope's first visit to America, the White House and the Vatican are at odds over the guest list. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host Rick Unger. Can you believe that people are upset that we're on the guest list to meet the Pope at the White House?
Well, I'm on the guest list. You are too, right?
I just said that, yeah.
Oh, that we are on the...
We are on the guest list.
Actually, honestly, mine I think got lost in the mail. I didn't get it.
That's interesting.
So you'll be there.
Well, because I'm the Catholic one.
Oh,
that makes sense.
I see.
Anyway.
What's everybody upset about?
They're upset
with the guest list.
There might be a transgender that's invited.
Oh, I heard
because
about that. Right.
Pope Frankie, as you call him.
Pope Frankie, my man.
Is progressive, and you're a progressive, so that's why he's your man.
I like Pope Frankie.
Interesting.
Good dude.
As we get our Excella tickets ready to go down to Washington, D.C.
To
his right. He's a Project 21 member, a Tea Party activist, and the Indiana State Coordinator for Tea Party Patriots. Emery McClendon is here making his Daily Wrap debut. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here all the way from Indiana.
The Friday show is always great, and I always root for the Hoosiers going back to Steve Alford, but great conversation for another time. Anyway, finally, he is a former FBI special agent, a former Navy SEAL, and currently the president of Continued Services. Jonathan Gilliam, sans jokes or props, is here as well.
That's right, and I am not Ann Coulter, in case anybody's wondering.
Wow.
Yeah, but you've been letting us down. Where have those great signs been lately that you hold up?
Well,
you had a material already?
I'm not that funny. I mean,
well, that's true.
I just have a little something funny.
That is true.
I'll work on it.
He may not be funny, but he's fun. All right, let's get right to the Daily Download.
I got such great remarks. Look at this. The Newsmax, way up ahead. Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too. The great Chris Ruddy, I like it too. Donald Trump, first place by a lot.
That was Donald Trump last night in New Hampshire giving Newsmax a little love. Thank you, Donald. It's Concha with a C, by the way. Ruddy should be mentioning us. Anyway,
yeah, well.
Although Trump did really well in a lot of polls, including ours. Let's show ours, by the way. Mr. Trump at 46.5, Carly Fiorina, which many feel won the debate, but Newsmax viewers feel differently, about half that. And Rubio and Carson about tied, Senator Ted Cruz, and then pretty much everybody else, including Jeb Bush, with only 1.49%. Apparently, people didn't like Mike Huckabee very much either, probably because it looked like he took an Uber cab out somewhere between the 9 and 10 hour because he wasn't getting asked any questions. So, anyway, it's not all rosy with Mr. Trump today. The Donald being criticized for his response, or lack thereof, to this question that was posed to him in New Hampshire.
Okay, this man, I like this guy.
From White Plains. Amen. Okay. We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. Right. You know he's not even an American.
We need this
birth
question.
certificate,
This
man.
question.
But anyway, we have training camps growing where they want to kill us. Mm-hmm. That's my question. When can we get rid of
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. And, you know, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there. We're going to be looking at that and plenty of other things.
It is interesting that the guy asking the question was actually Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Just saying. That response then prompted this.
This is racist crap, of course, and it's, to me, the big original sin of Donald Trump. Before he went after Mexican people from Mexico as immigrants and as rapists, which was outrageous. Long before that, he said our president was an illegal immigrant. He played that card, and he's still playing it. Apparently, our numbers show us that 2/3 of the people who like this guy, and I like to let him talk himself to death, I have to be honest about it. I think he should build his own grave instead of people saying, don't show him in action. I'm glad as hell we show this in action.
Fair and Balanced, Chris Matthews on MSNBC. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton weighed in on the Twitter, like she likes to do so often, saying Donald Trump not denouncing false statements about POTUS and hateful rhetoric about Muslims is disturbing and just plain wrong. Cut it out. Of course, she doesn't mention that she created rumors like this just a couple of years ago when she was running against Mr. Obama, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, it wasn't just those on the left criticizing Donald Trump. Republican presidential candidate Governor Chris Christie had this to say on the Today Show this morning.
Does Mr. Trump need to apologize to the president and to Muslims?
He's got to decide what he wants to do for himself, but I would just tell you that if somebody at one of my town hall meetings said something like that, I would correct them and say, no, the president's a Christian and he was born in this country. I mean, I think those two things are self-evident.
Okay, Rick. Does Trump need to apologize for something he didn't say, for not pulling a McCain and saying, you know what, that's wrong, and the president isn't a Muslim and should have set the record straight right there?
Here's the problem. Everybody is focusing on the president. Leave that out. That discussion's been had to death. If you believe that the president is a Muslim, if you believe that the president's from somewhere else, at this stage of the game, nothing's going to change your mind. That wasn't what I found important in it. What I found important was the guy started off by saying, we have a problem in this country, Muslims.
Peter Griffin started off that
Peter Griffin, yeah. We have a problem in this country, Muslims. Well, you know what, Mr. Whoever you are,
Call him Griffin.
Most Muslims in this country are American Muslims, the same as you're an American and whatever your religion is. And what Mr. Trump should have said was, in this country, under our Constitution, these people are Americans, and no, I'm not going to do anything to get rid of them. That's what was offensive.
Jonathan, what do you think about Peter Griffin, that's what we have to call him, not the guy in the crowd, his assertion that there are Muslim training camps here in America, basically ISIS training camps here in America? Do you believe they exist?
I think I think there's compounds where Muslims live. I'm surprised that the Bureau has not gone in and actually, seen if these rumors persist and found evidence for this and then shown us. If there is training camps going on, we need to know about it. And not just the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also state law enforcement. They need to be going there and looking at these things and then let us know.
I just want to quickly jump in to thank Jonathan, and I'm serious, because you gave an honest answer there. I've had to listen all day to people trying to tell me these training camps exist. These rumors have been around for years. They turn out to be cemeteries or other things that Muslim communities are trying to build. The FBI has, in fact, gone in to look at some of them. So far, I'm not telling you they're not there. I don't know. But so far, nobody's turned up anything.
I just think that they have to start answering questions that people have about this, because for two reasons. One, we need to know if there's a threat, and secondly, these types of individuals that come out like this guy in the crowd, there's people out there that are concerned about this, and the chance of Muslims also getting hurt because of these things exists. I think law enforcement and the government, state and local and federal governments need to step up to the plate and put these rumors to rest once and for all.
If you were Trump, would you have repudiated that guy in the crowd?
I would have told him, I would have said, listen, I'm going to give you one chance to rephrase that question, and then I would have just moved on.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Emory.
I concur totally, because we need to know if there is a threat. We need to have the things investigated, but it's been a long period of time, and we've heard these rumors. We've even heard it in Indiana, where I'm from, that there's a camp down around Pendleton, Indiana, or somewhere down around Bloomington, around the IU campus, but nobody's come up with any proof. If there is such a thing, then let it go. The guy, I think, he got himself in there. He asked a question to cause some controversy, and he's got it.
What would you have done if you were Trump?
If I was Trump, I think I would have had him rephrase the question. I think I would have asked him again, why does he feel that way?
The question seemed pretty clear, though.
No, it wasn't, and some great answers from our panelists, I got to say, because there were two different parts to that question.
Sure,
if Trump was responding to the training camp issue, his answer becomes a little bit better. But if he was responding to there's Muslims in this country, what are we going to do to get rid of them? All he had to do was rely on the Constitution. So it wasn't well phrased, and I agree with that. I agree with Jonathan.
I think the comments that some of these, like Hillary Clinton's making and the other reporters, I think that's so over the top, though, to the point where they're making Trump sound like he's the one who said it. And I kind of feel like, he's a little bit taken back, but I think that the press really needs to watch what they're saying.
And they're exploiting it for political gain. Clearly, they see an opportunity to paint not only Trump and the entire Republican Party as
anti-Muslim.
Yeah, anti-Muslim, very exactly. So that's how it works in politics today, unfortunately.
Politics.
Well, do you think Donald Trump needs to apologize? Probably not going to happen, but go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. Coming up, is it time to end affirmative action in college? Stick around.
And welcome back to the show. In 2008, the United States Supreme Court upheld affirmative action in universities. They did so by ruling that an admissions policy using race as a criteria for determining admission to a university was to be permitted for the purpose of ensuring that the benefits that come with diversity in the university environment would be protected. Now, that decision was not popular with everyone. The issue then was tested once again in 2013 when the Supreme Court decided to uphold the 2008 case, but they ruled that the burden was on the university, not the rejected white student, to prove that giving entrance to a minority student at the expense of that white student was necessary to maintain a diverse student body. While this decision came as something of a relief to those who support affirmative action, in reality, the Supreme Court had made it considerably more difficult to use affirmative action in public universities. Now, applying the new test prescribed by the High Court in 2013, the Texas courts ended up siding again with the University of Texas and their affirmative action policy. So now, the case is coming back to Washington, back to the Supreme Court, where it's going to be heard yet again by the Supremes in the fall session. Now, I know that's a bit complicated. We're going to suss it out for you a bit in the discussion. The overall question is it time for affirmative action to come to an end at our universities in the United States? Emory.
Yeah, I think we need to take a serious look at it because as I've been thinking all along, I've seen kids get into college with a lower SAT score than a person that has like a 400 or something. And these kids they're devastated. You know, I got misplaced by a person that's that low. They go to school, and then 9 times out of 10, my son, I have 3 sons, all 3 went to college, okay?
Right.
They have told me stories. They said, Dad, here's a guy that comes in, he gets a grant, he gets a scholarship, his scores are low, he goes in, he parties, he spends the scholarship money, he spends the other grants that he gets. He's kicked out of college within less than 3 or 4 months.
And he took up somebody's seat.
And he took somebody who was going to be serious, spent that money, wasted that money. Nobody got anywhere.
I get that. Jonathan, in the case that's at hand here, it's about the University of Texas. And they have a policy that was already established where if you're in the top 10% of your class, no matter what high school you come from in Texas, no matter what your racial background is, you're in to the University of Texas. And that should present some diversity.
Sure.
But if it's not presenting enough diversity and separating, and we're going to get to the issue of diversity in the workplace, which I think is very different, but separating that from the case, diversity, would you agree, is an important part of the university environment, and maybe some slack should be cut there?
Well, you just said that in Texas,
right,
they take the top 10%, right?
Yes.
So here's the problem I have with this. In this day and age, it is a fact. If you want to be something, you can be it. It is equal now in the way of if you want to achieve and you want to ignore racism, you want to ignore poverty, and you want to strive to be the best that you can be that. That is what I think should be rewarded. And I think in college, that's who should be in college. In a company, that's who I would want working for me. We need to stop looking so much at color and sex and who you want to have sex with and start looking at the quality of the person. Do they work hard enough? But, you know, those types of things. The one thing about affirmative action that itself that proves that it's worthless is that now we've gotten to a point to where a black man cannot get a position because a black woman they need a black woman.
Well,
so now even minorities are being discriminated against.
You're right, and that's getting into the workplace, which we're going to get to. Sure. I want to raise another side of this, and then I want Joe to respond to it. One of the questions frequently raised when discussing affirmative action is whether the very notion should be cast as paying a debt to African Americans for the way they were treated during the slavery era, or is it rather about trying to bring the benefits of diversity to the public at large? Is it, Joe, is either valid? Is one more valid than the other? At what point is that debt paid, if that's what it's about? What's the way this should be being approached?
This is about reparations, then you're saying?
Well, there are people who do see it that way, who say, yes, we owe this to black Americans because of what we did to them. And then there are others who go, no, it's not about that at all. It's about creating diversity opportunities.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Jonathan. I think way back when affirmative action was created, it was valid, right? If the African Americans or minorities in general weren't given the same opportunities, I think now it is a more equal playing field. I remember that I was told, I'm not going to throw this person under the bus, but a guidance counselor that I had, there were two, so anybody watching this from Wayne Valley High School, it's the other person, said, you know, your last name is Concha, and that is Latino, and you can apply under Latino, and you'll have a better chance of getting into some of the colleges that you're trying to get into. And I wouldn't do it because I just thought, I'm as white as Wonder Bread, right? I'm Wayne Gretzky. I'm not Jose Concha. And I'm proud I did that.
Well, that does happen. You're absolutely right, because they can't see you. They just see your name.
Exactly.
Emery, I want to push this a little bit now to the next phase. We're talking about universities and diversity there. But you and I were talking during the break, and you raised, which I think is a completely legitimate point. Now we go into the workplace, and we see these same standards being applied, and there are now incidents where people who may not be qualified get jobs that highly qualified people aren't getting. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it is a problem because, once again, I'll just reiterate, we live in a different time and place now. We live in a country where diversity, where the people don't even look at that kind of stuff anymore, the kids or anything. So you have police departments. They'll put out an employment benefit. Or they'll put out an employment, you know what I mean. They'll put out something for employment. They bring the people in. One guy gets the job.
I gotta wrap you up.
Okay, sorry. One guy gets
we'll continue. Share your thoughts on affirmative action by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know who you thought won the debate. Go on newsmaxpoll.com and cast your vote. We still have it open. Up next, we'll tell you why the White House and the Vatican are at war over the Pope.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, Pope Francis is coming to America next week, but there is some controversy surrounding his visit. Not from the Vatican necessarily, but from the White House. According to the Wall Street Journal, the president is inviting a few controversial guests to reject Catholic doctrine to meet the pontiff, specifically transgender activists Matteo Williamson and Vivian Taylor, the first openly gay give me that word. Episcopal bishop, thank you. Bishop Gene Robinson and Sister Simone Campbell, an activist nun who leads a group criticized by the Vatican for its silence on abortion and euthanasia. Now, Pope Francis has been very tolerant and open-minded, but reports say the Vatican is not too pleased with the guest list. So, is the president showing disrespect to the Vatican by inviting so many people that disapprove of Catholicism, Emery?
It won't be the first time, because we know that he's had other events where he's excluded people. So therefore, I think the Pope has a legitimate gripe, but at the same time, you know, it is the president, he's coming as a guest. But I don't think that I would slap a person in the face that blatantly if I was president.
Rick?
I gotta say, I see Emery's point on this. You invite somebody to your home as a guest, you invite people that guest is going to be comfortable with. Look, you know, I think that says enough. I'm not going to go any further on that.
But should you have to show deference to the Pope that, you know, he's a world leader. Some see it as a slap in the face, is what I'm saying.
It's not just the Pope. It's anybody. You know.
Well, he's also the leader of a very, very large religion in the world. He's a world leader. You should show some type of you know, reverence for the guy when he comes. Why do we have to have these kind of controversies if you know that's going to cause a problem? Yeah, but I mean, I'll answer my own question. Because we have a president that's an activist, and he's wanting to throw this in the face so that he can make it known that he doesn't have that stance.
That's the thing, Emery. Should the president be politicizing this trip? Because he could have very easily just had a very generic guest list, but instead this seems to have been done to create controversy. Right. I mean, it wasn't going to be ignored.
And the publicity on this is going to cause probably civil disorder. It's going to cause people to protest, and it's opening up something that we really don't need. They're already concerned about security at this event. Mm-hmm. They're already concerned. So why in the world would you open this up? You're going to have all kinds of people out there now spreading all kinds of rumors, just like, you know, some of the other issues that we've done. It's just not the thing to do. It's just not the thing to do.
Yeah, I'd love to support the president, but I'm not going to on this. If I invited you over to my house for a party, well, that's because nobody likes you, and there'd be nobody left for the party. But no, if there was a particular individual that you didn't have a good time being around, I'm not going to invite that individual and spoil your night when I invite you as a guest. I got to agree. It's just, look, the Pope caused trouble because he didn't want to meet with certain dissidents. As he goes to Cuba, right. and that got some people riled up. But he made a statement: I want this to be calm. I want these to be not political. I get where he's going. Then let's abide that.
They're not going to invite the Chinese, is it Prime Minister or President of China,
yeah.
and then have somebody that supports the Dalai Lama, for instance, because that would cause conflict.
It's just a conflict.
That would be a complete political statement if you did. That's the same thing here.
I played golf with the Dalai Lama. Big hitter.
You got it?
Yeah. The Pope is getting heat for his stance on global warming, Caddyshack reference, pun intended, as well as making the process of getting an annulment easier, and other issues Catholic conservatives have found a little too progressive. Is the Pope pushing the church too far to the left, Jonathan Gillian?
Well, I'm not Catholic.
What are you?
I grew up mostly Baptist, but I'm non-denominational. I believe in the Bible, and I guess, like being a constitutionalist, I'm also a fundamentalist when it comes to Christianity.
That's
so,
interesting.
I have my opinions on the way this, the Pope is the leader of a large group of people who follow the Christian faith, and I think that he needs to be mindful of that. And this social engineering that's going on in the world right now, I think, is kind of ridiculous in the way of, it's okay for social change, I'm all about that, but social engineering, I think, just like whether it be the women going through Ranger School, you need to take a step back and see if the population is comfortable moving as fast as you want to press it in there, because sometimes that can cause more problems.
Edward, do you think it's the Pope's place to be talking about the weather, to be talking about economic approaches? In other words, it's well beyond his jurisdiction in the eyes of some that he gets involved in these things. Now, it has given him a lot of media attention and obviously made him a very popular pope in some circles.
But be careful, you can't have it both ways. Think back to what you were all saying in the last conversation we just had.
Which was?
Which was he's not a political guest. We were all saying that we shouldn't invite political people that trouble him to the White House because he's the leader of a world religion. Now, you can't suddenly turn him into a politician when it suits you. He either is or he isn't.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is that she's giving opinions on things like global warming and capitalism.
Personally, he can,
do whatever he wants.
Speak whatever he wants to. But one of the things he's got to realize is he represents a very large organization, and that organization has standards that they go by. He needs to stick to those unless the whole church is willing to say we'll take a vote on this and change it.
Okay, we'll end it on that note. Up next, did the military alter ISIS reports? Stay tuned.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. The New York Times is reporting that a group of senior military officials may have altered intelligence reports on various military operations against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. The allegations further suggest that the alleged changes were intended to whitewash data being delivered to the White House. This would make ISIL terrorist organization appear weaker than it actually is, while further suggesting that the United States bombing campaign has been more successful than what is really taking place. Now, last week, the Daily Beast reported that the United States military changed their reports in order to fit the positive narrative the White House has been communicating to the nation, one that suggests we are actually winning the fight against ISIS. Now that the New York Times has picked up the story, if accurate, these are very, very serious accusations. I got to begin by asking everybody on the panel, do you really think that our senior military officials would actually start doctoring these reports? Joe?
No, I don't believe they would. I believe that politicians obviously would in this situation, but I don't see what senior military people, how they would benefit by putting out false reports.
Well, they would benefit if they were asked by a politician to do it.
Right. I maybe I'm naive, but I can't believe that they could be coerced. But I would think that, Jonathan, you'd be able to answer this question better than I could.
I just will say this. I think that we have incompetence at the higher ranks of the DOD that we've never seen before. I think that it's become
incompetence, though?
It's incompetence. It's become so political that the DOD has become just like every other federal agency. If you just check boxes, you get to the top somehow.
Well, that is, Emery, when you read, that's a whole different thing. If they're just somehow screwing up how they're doing the reports is one thing. But if Clapper at CIA is saying to his senior intelligence officers when they're giving him the real report, no, you know, I think that might not be right. Maybe we actually blew up this many, or maybe ISIL lost X number of troops. I'm not telling you what to write. I'm just saying maybe, I mean, that's not incompetence. That's intentionally changing.
That's absolutely right. And I think it's a shame if that is what's happening, because our military, we have the strongest and best military on the face of the earth. They cannot be doing things like that, because what will happen is it gives the guys out in the field who knows what's going on, if they're not doing what these reports said that they did, they know that. And then ISIS, or ISIL, whatever you want to call them, they also know the exact same thing. And it's either going to strengthen one and weaken the other one.
That's actually a very good point, because it's not just a question of the possibility that the American public is being lied to, but ISIL knows it. They know what's really going on. If they see this, what does that do? Well, I'll tell you what. It does go down below some senior officials who turned it over, because now the matter's being investigated by the Pentagon Inspector General. That being the case, should the White House be commenting on this sooner rather than later? I'd certainly like to know whether the Commander-in-Chief has unknowingly been fed sanitized war reports, or if this is coming from down below. Emery, what do you think?
And that would make a lot of difference, too, on some of the speeches that the president is giving. We're winning the war. We've heard him say that. We're doing very well. And that, I was looking at things, and I got friends that are in the military and so forth, and I said, wait a minute, that's not what they're telling me. That, you know, they have some victories. They have a lot of victories. Our military is doing a fine job. But some of the things that are coming out in these reports are contradictory. I hope they're not true, that they're doctoring these up. So, yeah, it would make a great, grave difference. So.
Jonathan, I think I know how you're going to answer this, but if this is happening, and I keep saying if, because there hasn't been, and strangely, you know, the story broke out of the Daily Beast, and then it disappeared for a week. Then the New York Times picked it back up, and I started following it a bit more closely, but it still has disappeared since then. Is the White House, if this is happening, directing this to happen, or are these intelligence people who don't want to tell the White House the truth?
I think it may be a mix of both, because the DOJ, for instance, has become so liberal that people don't want to look at the truth a lot of the times. Just like this kid.
This isn't a DOJ thing.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm using that as an example. Just like this kid in Texas with this clock, people don't want to believe the reality that, hey, a kid could possibly bring a clock to school that has a bomb attached to it. I think in the DOD, you got two problems. You got people who don't want to believe that it's as bad as it is, and I think you have a lot of people that are being told, you know, it's not that bad, and then they go, okay, I'm going to write a paper, and it's not that bad.
The thing is, the American public isn't fooled, though, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to see that we're not winning the war against ISIS. We're not losing necessarily, but last I checked, Mosul is still in the hands of ISIS, and that caliphate is still spread out over half of Syria
but it's not
and a quarter of Iraq.
It's not a war on ISIS. It's a war with fundamental Islam. That's the problem.
I get that. I get that. But these reports specifically are around ISIS, and the fact is, any American watching TV can see that they're not being pushed out of anywhere. So you can doctor anything you want. It's not going to matter. You can see that we're not doing enough.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, what I was going to say is this being driven by fear? Have we seen what's going on in the military, the loss of all our generals and so forth?
If it's happening, it's being driven by pure politics, because the president wants to leave it for the next administration. Great. Are you surprised to learn that the intelligence data on ISIS may have been altered? Let us know by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. I am very interested in hearing what our viewers have to say about this one, because this is weird.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Let's read some of your viewer comments. First, we have one hot off the press. Ow, it's actually hot. I don't think Trump should apologize. Everyone I know thinks Obama is a Muslim and that he's purposely trying to destroy America from within. This comes from Lynn. who is from a zip code 76085. Not sure quite where that is.
Come on, don't do that.
It's a zip. What? I gave the zip code? What are they going to do? Drone her house now and track her down? You're sick. This issue of Muslim training camps worries thinking Americans.
All right, and this from Danny. Danny, I will not read your zip code. I believe that the comments made at Trump town hall meetings are revealing what many Americans feel about the Muslim religion. The POTUS is speaking loud and clear about whom he supports, and it generally is not Christians, but rather those who desire to destroy America. I'm just going to make one comment. Guys, you're entitled to your opinions. That is your constitutional right. All that I ask of you is that you remember that other Americans, people born here, people raised here just like you, are entitled to their rights too. And they have a right to be Muslim, Jewish, or anything that they want to be, just like you have a right to have your comments.
I don't think anybody that made those comments was saying anything about the constitutional rights. So what they're saying is that people worry. That is the truth. Now, whether or not that guy meant to say it that way last night or not, the fact is there's a lot of people that are worried because the real threat of national security to this country right now is Muslim terror.
And to your point, we saw what happened at that Geller event in Texas. We saw what happened in Tennessee. So people have a right to be worried.
Is anybody here proud that we interned Japanese Americans during World War II? You proud of that?
How many terrorist attacks did we have by Japanese Americans back in those days? We didn't have a lot, and that's the way they reacted.
And they were interned.
But that's the way they
Democratic
reacted.
president.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Under a Democratic president.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm not proud of that part of our history. They have the same rights as Americans that we do. And when I read somebody say that,
but worry is not taken away from somebody's constitutional right.
It is when you're worrying about somebody because of their religion. If you think that you know somebody who wants to hurt you, your family, this country, then I get it. I get it. I'm going to worry about them too. But I'm going to worry about them no matter who they are or what they are if they want to hurt my family or my country. I'm not going to apply that to an entire subclass of people.
You just said worry that we can start telling people that they can't worry about something.
I didn't say that they can't worry.
You did say that.
I said, no, I'm talking about a whole class of people, not about worrying. That's not at all.
Then that class of people needs to start policing their own and taking charge.
Vigilance. Moving on. Next, we have some more on Wednesday's food fight, also known as the second GOP debate. Nicholas says, quote, Rick, why is Rand Paul the only one talking about criminal justice reform? It was one of the few things said Wednesday that actually had the word you love, actual substance.
Yeah, and actually you're right. And Rand Paul has been good talking about criminal justice reform. And I'm with you all the way. I thought he was terrible in the debate, but I wish other Republican and Democratic candidates would pick up the topic too. You're right.
Okay, read, because it looks like an
intense
need. All right,
Watching the Fall, that's their ID, says, hey Joe, love the whole get smart Gomer Pyle thing you got going on there. Trump is the only candidate that has any chance of bringing over millennials. All right, Gomer.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you used your real name and stepped up like a man. Wait a minute, so get smart, so who is that? Don Adams?
Yeah.
And then Gomer Pyle was Jim Nabors.
I get the Don Adams thing. I kind of see that. I'm not quite sure I'm getting the
well, watching the Fall, you missed it by that much.
Surprise.
Golly.
I watched Inspector Gadget, though, as a kid, though. That I have to admit to. And please, dude, I'm Jim Carrey, honestly, right?
Who didn't?
Stop me. All right, Suzette says, everybody should stop whining about Trump. Finally, someone tells it like it is instead of talking in circles like a typical politician. Trump is incredibly intelligent, and that's what we need, the businessman and not a politician. He can negotiate with anyone, and he is proving he gets things done. Well, if you want a business person as well, you might want to look at Carly Fiorina if the Trump thing doesn't work out. Just saying.
And we can have a long chat about whether or not Trump really tells it like it is. Kitty says, why do people say Fiorina is an outsider? I don't trust her any more than I do Hillary. She isn't honest about her job history, but that fits perfectly with politicians.
Oh, isn't that interesting that she's not an outsider? Don't believe she's ever held office, and she was a business person. And hot off the press, Fiorina surpasses Trump in post-debate New Hampshire poll. She's now leading by 4 points in New Hampshire.
She did run for the Senate.
Well, she did run for the Senate, but I'm just saying that we're seeing our first bump at a Fiorina who won that debate.
I'm just agreeing with our wonderful
Are you going to even comment
viewer
on what I'm saying?
I'm not surprised. Let's see what it is next week.
Okay, well, she was down 15 points before that poll was taken, and now she's actually over 10. I'm just saying. Anyway, you're reading.
I'm reading. Oh, Don says, you people don't seem to be taking the debate very seriously. Right, because when we spend 4 hours in here, we're not taking it seriously. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Ben Carson are the only authentic candidates there who would deliver change. It gets boring to watch commentators trying to be smarter than everyone else. Clowns. Very easy solution. Don't watch.
No, please watch. Keep watching.
He thinks that we're
no,
clowns.
No. Keep watching. Look. His point is clear, though.
Sure.
That's what many people feel right now. Anyway,
Why are they
remember, if you want to weigh in on any of these issues us clowns talk about here on the show, be sure to go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know what you think. Up next, it's time for Yay or Nay. It's happy time. This is the Daily Wrap. It's happy time, people. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, the Obama administration announcing today it is easing travel, commerce, and investment sanctions with Cuba. Aside from expanding the categories of Americans allowed to travel in and out of the country, it will now be easier for people in business to lay down some roots in the country and open bank accounts. Cuba, however, will still be able to place restrictions on American commerce. Will you be spending your next vacation or spring break in Havana, Rick Unger?
Look, let's be honest. None of this means a thing
Except?
until we can get cigars into this country legally.
Can we now?
Well, we still can't bring in Cuban cigars legally.
Why not?
When we can do that, there's no change in that part of the law. Importing, exporting, no.
But
no, they are still banned.
Wow, I was an import-exporter once. I concentrated more on the export side. But I don't understand how you open up all this trade and then the best commodity they have, you put a ban on.
I say it means absolutely nothing until we can buy Cuban cigars at a reasonable price.
Emery, this is a whole ball of wrong.
Yeah, but I heard the same thing, that they didn't open up for cigars. So yeah, people have
See?
a problem.
Okay,
This
that's
is
the
what we
deal
care
breaker.
about,
Gil.
right?
But what Cuba does export here or import here into the United States is spies. It's one of the highest it has one of the highest number of spies inside the United States.
When you roll them up in a nice Connecticut shade wrapper, how's that?
Sorry to rain on your parade.
Moving on. Pope Francis, arguably one of the most popular popes ever, if not the most exposed, if not the most visible, is making his first trip to the U.S. next week. But does he like America? The Pope is a self-proclaimed opponent of capitalism, consumerism, decadence, and several other, quote, American things, but is rumored to be a fan of the Daily Wrap. Who knew? Some experts say the Pope will even use his visit as an opportunity to try and urge greedy, self-indulgent Americans like Jonathan Gilliam to change their ways and take more responsibility as a superpower. Okay, is the Pope anti-American, Rick?
No. In fact, the Pope, this will be his first visit in his life to America. He's never been here. I think he'll like what he finds. I think we'll like him. He's going to have a great trip, I hope, and I think he'll have nothing but good things to say. Pope Frankie is a good guy. He's a good man. He's going to do just great here.
Oh, it's going to be huge. Even Time Warner Cable actually is creating its own Pope channel for 2 weeks, just 24/7 Pope.
I think
Incredible.
Sirius XM is too, if I'm not mistaken.
Is Emery, is the Pope anti-American, or is he just a progressive guy?
I disagree with some of his statements, but I think that until I can do further research, I won't be able to tell. But he has said some pretty bad things about our capitalistic system.
It's true. Jonathan?
Well, I will tell you this: he's never been to the U.S. before, but he has been to America because he is South American.
He makes a good point.
You're right. You're absolutely right. He's
And
never
who
been to
knew
the
there was a
United States.
new Mexico?
I am so embarrassed.
Anyway,
That's right, you
a
should.
new
I'm
study
so
out
people
of
like
Queen
you.
Mary University in London finds that liberals tend to curse more on Twitter than their conservative counterparts. Researchers looked at 10,000 Twitter members who follow the official Democratic and Republican Party accounts and found liberal Twitter users cursed more because they are generally more emotional in their posts than conservatives. Also, while liberals tend to use words that express their individual identities, conservatives tend to use words that express their national identities. We have one example of a tweet from a liberal, and there it is. That's Rick Unger's account. Look at that. Huckabee has to be redacted, doesn't know expletive about the expletive Constitution, and Scott Walker is an expletive that has no business, expletive, hashtag Chafee 2016.
I remember that one. I can't believe you found it among all of my obscene tweets.
We had like 1,000 to choose
Wow.
from.
It was a great
yeah,
profile
no, I know.
picture.
And I got to tell you, I don't know what the We have a beeper here? I don't think we do, so I'll just let it go with
Shut
that.
the front door. Emery, do you have a Twitter account?
Yes, I do.
And do you ever use expletives on to make your point, or like Rick does?
Well, believe it or not, I am actually a non-cusser.
Yeah,
Good
I
for
do
you.
believe it. Emery's a real gentleman.
You know what? And that
I
shows
say.
class. And I think way too much in this country, and I'm being serious right now, we just drop F-bombs and S-bombs too much because we can't find another adjective that would be more appropriate, so we just default to that. Anyway, you
Yes, I have a Twitter, and I want everybody to go on it, @JGilliam_Seal, and
Glad
look at
somebody picked up on that.
look at what I have to put on there about Carly Fiorina. I want people to start looking at her background.
Okay, very good. Obviously, in my camp, supporting Fiorina. Anyway, that's all for tonight. I'm Joe Concha on behalf of Rick Unger and the rest of our panel. I want to thank you for joining us, particularly you, Emery, on your first night here. We appreciate
Enjoyed
it.
having you.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here. Great show.
Great show indeed. All right, the Steve Malzberg Show. That's next.